Hey guys, what's going on? Sherman here. And I have a knife review for you guys that is one of those knives that we pick up just solely for the fact that we think they look cool. So this is the Mantis MSR-3 friction folder. Saw this knife for the first time on Muddy Desires channel. He bought this one and the MSR-2. It's a little bit different. I'll go over that here in a minute. And just right off the bat, I love the design. You know, a lot of you may think I'm stupid. Love the design. So I just wanted to get it based on that. It was fairly cheap, and it has a lot of flaws, to be honest with you guys. But this knife has its intended applications and should be treated as such. Now, a lot of you don't know what a friction folder is, so I'm going to explain it. A friction folder is a knife that has absolutely no lock, no locking mechanism. It's just a blade with an elongated tang that sandwiches between the frame of the knife, and the sheer friction from that keeps the blade closed, and also from holding it keeps the blade from closing, like on a lot of slip joint knives. No lock whatsoever, so this makes this knife legal in all states and all countries, to the best of my knowledge, because even some states here in the US don't allow locking knives, and if they do, there's other weird stipulations and rules and regulations and such. And you know, other countries do not allow locking knives and things of that sort. So this gets past that. So it does have its own place in the knife world. Now, like I said, this sparked a lot of conversation in my unboxing of this knife. You know, some people loved the design and wanted to get a hold of it. Others flat out said that it was stupid. You know, and I can understand that. Some people don't believe friction folders have a place in the knife world, though. I highly disagree. I think there's a knife for everybody, and every knife has its place in the knife world. Like I said, this knife is legal in every state and every country. Here again, to the best of my knowledge. So it has its role. Also, people are making these who can't make more expensive frame locking or liner locking knives. People get into friction folding knives because it's somewhat easier and cheaper to make. So it allows people to get into knife making who may not be able to afford to otherwise get into making, you know, frame locks and all that kind of stuff. So it allows a different group of people to be able to start making customs, and I like that. So, but I'm not saying that people who make, you know, slip joints don't know anything about knives, but it is a little bit easier to make. So it allows people to be able to express and get their designs out to the people. So friction folders have their place, in my opinion, and they're very different. They're fun, in my opinion, to play with, because it's a different motion, it's a different action, something different to do with a knife, and I like that. Like I said, this is my first friction folder, so it's a different kind of cool for me. All right, enough about the philosophies of frame locking or friction folding knives. This is, like I said, the Mantis MSR-3. This is a collaboration design with custom knife maker Warren Thomas. Warren Thomas, one of my all-time favorite custom knife makers, which is what drew me to this knife, because this is really the only way I can get a hold of one of his designs. But he has a friction folding knife almost identical to this, but of course it's titanium and all that good stuff. Size-wise, like when I'm talking about legality, the blade length is only 2.5 inches. Legal in almost every single state. Any state I can imagine, anyway. Blade length, or the entire knife together, is 6 inches, like exactly. From the tallest point right there to the tip of the blade, 6 inches. So it is a small knife. Small, super, super lightweight, probably weighs 1.5 to 2 ounces, I'd have to guess. So super lightweight, nothing to it, no steel liners. This particular model has what they call Arctic White and Seal Gray G100 material. Never heard of G100 before in my life until I bought this. It has a peel ply texture to it, and it resembles G10, but it has absolutely no traction whatsoever. And honestly, it feels cheap. It feels like an FRN. It feels a lot less like G10 to me. But this is not a tactical knife, so it doesn't really matter now, does it? But I'm just stating, this doesn't feel, it just kind of feels cheap to me. But it doesn't really matter. Like I said, this is not a tactical knife. I think it looks really good. You do not see many knives that have a white handle. You just don't. So in my opinion, that makes it really unique, and I liked that aspect. You have an AUS 8 steel blade, stainless steel. I like AUS 8. Mantis engraving right there. That actually looks really cool. Chisel ground, show side completely flat. Opposite side is where the grinds are. I think it looks really good, to be honest with you. I like the upper swedge right there. Now, the thing that bugged me about this knife is that fit and finish wise towards the blade, it kind of lacks. Very, very visible grind lines. You can feel them. You can see them. Now, Spyderco and Benchmade do that as well, but for some reason I don't mind it so much when they do it. I just think they do it better. Their grinds better. Also, in the right light, you can see these smoky areas right there. You can really see it in the light. Right there. Fit and finish wise, I think that's terrible looking. It's much more visible in person. But I think that's either where they slipped on the grinder and ground some of that flat off. They ground off some of the flats. Or they left it on the polishing wheel too long. You know, the satin polishing wheel. But other than that, it is a very nice satin finish blade. Just fit and finish wise, I don't like the way that looks. Edge came decently sharp. I mean, I was actually surprised with the edge on it. My other Mantis knives have just came butter knife dull. So I was very happy to see this one came sharp. I sharpened it and put a much better edge on it. Now it's a razor sharp. You cannot take this knife apart. It is held together with these two, basically they're bolts. They're press fitted into each other. So you cannot remove these, although it looks like you can, because it looks like a Torx, it looks like a hex bit. But you cannot. I've tried. This is why some of them look kind of banged up, because it looks like you can remove those. Like I said, no steel liners whatsoever. And I just want to mention this, the difference between this one and the MSR-2. The MSR-2 has black actual G10 scales. It has black G10 scales with a fluted pattern, has ridges in it. And that little, I guess you can call it a tube right there, is anodized red, which looks pretty cool. So they're actually the exact same price, if I'm not mistaken, so it doesn't really matter which one you get. I think it'd be better now, looking in hindsight, to get the G10 version, because this G100 stuff just feels cheap. But like I said, it does look good. But it gets dirty real easily. But here again, not a tactical knife. This is, in my opinion, a kind of a show knife, you know. Also, one more thing I want to mention with the blade is that you can see some other smoky areas down here near where the bevel would be ground. Like they kind of polished off that side. They kind of polished the back bevel. Which, Warren Thomas, his blades, he uses mostly titanium. And he carbonizes his blades. Meaning he electrically charges carbon particles to the titanium so that it can take a better edge and be stronger. So, I don't know if that's what they were going for with that look. I really don't, but I mean, it looks kind of neat. So I don't know if that's what they were going for. Handle design, it looks ugly. I'm not going to lie. Love the blade shape and design. Handle looks really ugly in my opinion. But it's almost one of those things that looks so ugly that's actually attractive, if you know what I mean. Ergonomics wise, when you get this knife in hand, feels incredible. So the handle does have a function. It feels incredible. No hot spots. Deep finger choil, but that's a product of the design of a friction folder, because you're not going to want that to fold. Now, my main gripe with this knife is there's a lot of slop. And most friction, or pretty much all friction folders, the tang nests in between the frame. It sandwiches. The frame pinches, basically, pinches the tang together. But as you can see, there's no contact from the tang of the blade and the frame of the knife. And that allows a lot of slop. So when you're holding this knife, you can see that I can move the blade, like even when I'm holding it really tight. There's still a lot of slop in that blade, and it just makes it feel unsafe. You know, I know that it's not unsafe, but it's the way it feels. Also, when the blade's closed, it has a little bit of slop before the main detent kind of breaks away. There is no real detent, but you can kind of feel you know. Also, that you can see there's a lot of slop. So I don't really like that. That's kind of a huge gripe. Now, it's kind of funny in reverse grip. If you wanted to go tactical with this knife, you could. It feels incredible in the reverse grip, actually. Your pinky goes in that finger choil, your thumb rests in that little groove, and there's less slop. So you could actually go, you know, you could go reverse grip with this thing. I would highly, you know, I would advise against that. But that is not the intended application of this knife. But like I said, a lot of slop. I don't really like that. Pocket clip is fastened to that press-fitted bolt. Very, very cheap feeling. Very, very flimsy. Goes onto the pocket nicely. I will give it that, and it will not mess up your pockets because the G100 material is not aggressive. Here's my problem with the pocket clip, though. You ready? You shouldn't ever be able to do that with a pocket clip. Since it's not held together with any screws, it's just press-fitted into that bolt, you can move it all around. And that is a huge problem. It looks so cheap. I mean, you know, Strider does this same thing, but Strider has a pin that goes from their pocket clip and sets into the frame of the knife so it will not ever move side to side. This just moves all around, you know. Hate that. It just feels so cheap. You can really see how the scale, you can see how it's from factory and then how it got dirty so quickly. So, huge complaint there. That's just a huge problem in my opinion. Anyway, it goes onto the pocket nicely, but it carries very, very high. Here again, though, this knife is not meant to be a self-defense, tactical, quote-unquote, tactical blade. This is a possible EDC knife. And I wouldn't even recommend it as that, to be honest with you guys. There's just no need to carry this in most states. Most of you are never going to need to carry one of these. Even people who live in New York, Gavco. You know, Gavco doesn't, you know, he carries all kinds of knives that would be considered, you know, illegal, quote unquote, in his state. You know, he says he carries them anyway. Most people do. That's just, you know, fact. But this knife still has its place in the knife world. So take that for what it is. You can't condemn this knife completely. You know, you can't compare it to a ZT-0350 or anything like that. You know, you can't compare it to Spyderco Paramilitary 2. This knife is in its own category and is decent in its own merits. So you got a nice edge. It looks different. That's what drew me to this knife. It's very unique. I have no knife that looks like this. And I like that. It's fun to play with because it's very different. You know, having a friction folder is just a different experience. It's something different to play with and to get used to. And I like that. So, that's what drew me to this knife. $40 from Knife Center. Aussay steel. Looks pretty good. Like I said, it's just very different looking. But it definitely has its flaws. But take that for what it's worth, guys, and take this review with a grain of salt. This knife is not perfect. It is not really fair to compare it against other knives because it's in its own category. So, if you have any questions on this knife, guys, let me know. Drop them in the comments box. And have a great day. Stay safe, stay sharp, and God bless. Sherman614. Peace.